and I'm here on a beautiful Monday night, 50 degrees outside in Springfield, Missouri, with the one, the only Billy Dove.
It's me, Billy Dove.
How you feeling tonight, Billy?
Good for a Monday.
Yeah, honestly, it's been a good Monday.
Yeah, I have no complaints. Yeah. Weather's nice outside.
That's right. You got the Andes hat going on here. Is that like, can I buy that at Andes, or is that like you got to know a guy? It's kind of like special.
So they invited me out when they had the caramel apples that came out back in, I think it was in the fall.
Okay.
And so this was one of the hats that they gave us, and like a little package full of stuff. And
very cool.
It's lightweight, and it's become like one of my favorite hats.
Yeah, it looks like a very lightweight trucker hat.
Yeah,
no, that's
sure.
Awesome. He's like, it's special edition, Morgan. No, you can't have it. No, that's okay. That's okay. Welcome to the pod. It's so nice having you. We're so close to the podcast party. Life is crazy, but we finally got to meet up.
Yeah, for sure.
For you guys that don't know, we've had like 2 ice storms in Springfield, which I don't mind because I love working from home, but also they don't snow plow and salt the roads fast enough that I actually did try to drive into work last Monday, and when I tell you my car was just horizontally sliding, I was actually very scared. So
yeah, I know because it's been for the last 2 weeks. And I work from home. And so in Ozark, so I was just like, I'm not going to try to attempt to drive to downtown Springfield with it all.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe, the podcast hasn't blown up that much yet. I'm just maybe down the line. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited. But my listeners, for those of them that don't know who you are, can you just go ahead and tell us, your job title, how you got to Springfield, that kind of thing?
So we talking like daytime job, like my regular?
Yeah, daytime, side hustle, all the vibes. The resume.
Yeah, okay. So I grew up in a small town called Sparta, which is just south of Springfield. And so I moved to Ozark after I graduated high school and started going to college and everything. And so for career-wise and job-wise and everything, I've worked for John Deere Remanufacturing here in Springfield for it'll be 16 years in March.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We gotta cheer him on for that. Yes, sir. Okay, and I'm so bad because I'm in the Gen Z era, and I can't speak for the rest of the Gen Z, but I don't know if I would ever be at a company for 16 years, but I know so many people that are. So what would you say in terms of like retention or loving your job? I mean, 16 years is huge. Yeah,
it is. Well, I would say the main thing is John Deere is such a large company, a great company to work for, and it's, I look at it as it's not just, about the pay that I get, say, working for John Deere, but it's the, say, like medical insurance and all the stuff that comes along with the benefits that come along with it. And so, after, going on 16 years, it's something that, I get a fully vested pension for my retirement. And then they have a fully matched, 8 or 9 or 10% 401k. And so after 16 years, I've got a pretty good amount of money invested for my retirement. And it's been a great career for providing for my family for the last 16 years. And they're just a great company to work for. So, unless something just really came along that, offered me the stability or better stability than what I currently have through Deere after this long, my hopes are this is where I will plan to retire from. But you never know what could happen tomorrow.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so that's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Yeah. So Monday through Friday, I work 5 to 3 typically.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah.
So as a salary employed, you kind of shift your hours however you need to get. I'm a buyer, so I can. Most of my work is with suppliers and contacts outside of our company and even outside of this country, and so I work remotely 3 days a week and go into the office 2 days a week.
Very cool. Very cool.
So, yeah.
So now we got to get into this side hustle that feels like it's gotten pretty big.
Yeah. So I started literally on a whim. It was in July of 2019. Just like everybody else, I was sharing pictures of my food on my personal social media pages, and I just, I kind of wanted to start migrating that to a soul page. Something just like it, not critiquing food or anything like that, just like just showing where I was going to eat at. And so a podcast I had listened to had mentioned saying that they would rather be called a foodist rather than a foodie because it sounded a little bit more, prestige or something. And so I liked the name of it. I liked that. And so I was just like, one day I was like, hey, I went to my wife and I was like, I want to start, an Instagram page called 417Foodist. And, I asked her, I'm like, hey, can you throw me up, put me together like a quick, this generic logo for something. So within 5 minutes, she threw something together for me.
Is she like a graphic designer?
No.
I love that. She's just a good wife.
And she was like, here you go. Gotcha.
That's awesome.
And so that was in July of 2019. And so I just kind of started doing what I was already doing and just, going to local restaurants, posting pictures of whatever food I was eating. By December of 2019, Joy Robertson I don't know if you're familiar with Joy or not.
Joy, we love her. Go Queen.
So she was at Ozarks Live. She had been at Ozarks Live in Color 10 for years. I grew up, watching her and Tom Turton and stuff. And she had messaged me through Facebook. She's like, who are you? Because I never had any intention.
I'm trying to get DMs like that. Like, just slide in my DM and be like, who the heck do you think you are? Like,
I never had any intentions of, doing anything major. Like, it was just supposed to be about food. It wasn't supposed to be technically be about me. And she's like, who are you? Are you wanting to stay anonymous? Do you want people to know who you are? And here I was on a lunch break at work. And I'm like, sitting with buddies. I'm like, Joy Robertson from Color 10 messaged me. And,
I'm so dead. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. And she was like, would you like to, we'd like to have you on Ozarks Live to, or have a meeting with you about showcasing some of the local places you're going to. And so they invited me in for a meeting. So I got to sit down with Joy Robertson, Tom Turton, and the manager of the station at the time. And the plans, what they presented to me was a Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dive-esque, like us putting cameras in my car and
Kim Kardashian of the Ozarks.
And me and Tom or me and Joy going out to local restaurants and just trying different foods and stuff like that. And
was it almost like an undercover vibe? Is that what they were hoping for, or documentary style, or?
I don't know if it was going to be well, it would have been, no one would have knew who I was at the time. So it would have been about, they would have known Tom. And so that was our plan. That was December of 2019. And so we were like, yeah, I'm gung-ho, we're ready to go. And but then by spring of 2020, with COVID hit, none of that happened. Yeah. Like at all. And so we went to kind of doing remote stuff, what we could do and stuff like that. And some different opportunities came up with because whenever I had started the account, I started reaching out to different local restaurant owners about doing short interviews. I would just, a typed interview, because everyone was, staying at home and everything. So I just started kind of emailing different business owners, sending them, asking if they were available for an interview. I'd send them an interview, and then I would just kind of post the short interview between me and them, talking about their business and what they had.
Was it like over Zoom or?
Actually, just like a blog post type of thing. And so I did that.
So I have a quick pause though before we get deeper into that. So at this point, you're still working full time. It's COVID. You've gotten some buzz with Joy Robertson. Like at this point, how big was your following in 2020?
Oh, maybe a couple thousand. I would say. Okay. If that, probably around the 1,000 or 1,200 people.
Yeah, because I think it's really awesome. Because I feel like at that point, when 2020 hit, a lot of people would have been like, okay, this was fun, but now it's too hard with the pandemic. And I like how, you're like, okay, no, I want to keep this going. Yeah. What's a different avenue that I can still get content and get people's, food and story. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and it was a great way for people to get to know the food they're eating, but also have an understanding that I wanted to give insight to what it takes to put that food on your plate. Get to know the people that are creating these menus, these restaurants and stuff like that. So kind of a small little insight, a peek behind the curtain of the business owners. And so it did well enough to where, I had the chance to write for Longitude Branding here in town. They reached out and I did a couple of things for their website. And same with Murney Associates. So Murney Associates reached out about the Murney blog.
Wow.
And so I wrote a couple of things for their website as well. And so that took me through, I think, all the way through 2020 and through 2021, maybe. So I was still doing Color 10 once 2021 hit. And I could go back into the studio at Color 10. So it was enough to keep me busy but still within the hobby of things I could do just on the weekend. And Megan Buckbinder from Springfield CVB, which is springfieldmo.org, the tourism branch for the city of Springfield, reached out about 2 years ago and asked if I'd be interested in writing for their website as well and in creating content for their social medias. So I had a meeting with them, and we kind of decided that we would do the unofficial name was Foodist Fridays. And so I would create food content for their for their social medias on Fridays, and I would write 2 blog posts a month for their website, all strictly revolving around local food and restaurants and stuff. And so that took off relatively quick. So because they had a pretty large following, and they said every time that they would reach out to their following and asking what people wanted, they always wanted more food content, show us more food content within the area. And so once I started working with them and doing collaboration work with them and stuff like that, and Color 10 picked back up after the pandemic and stuff, and then the account really took off from there. A year ago, when Power 965 reached out and asked if I'd be interested in doing the same thing for them for their radio show, and so I agreed to that. And so that was, we were doing once a month, starting last year, and it went well. And it went well enough where they're like, hey, let's do not just the radio show, but start coming on 2 times a month, and we'll do a food challenge where I bring food on for them to try from a local restaurant, and then they bring on some kind of wacky food that they find or something they make for me to try and taste on camera for a video and stuff like that. And so just over the last 2 years, the accounts went from I've been doing it for 4 years now. The account went from about 1,200 followers to right about 14,000 followers.
Yeah, that's amazing. So cool. Yeah, Billy. I have so many questions based on what you said. I mean, so many cool things. One, I think it's awesome that consistency just shows. I think a lot of people, even in podcasts, they say that 80% of people don't make it past 5 episodes. So I think it shows that's hey, maybe you haven't met your break at the 1 year or the 2 year, but that 3 year could be it, or the 4 year, whatever it may be. One, how do you have time to do all these things? Is it really work is done at 3:00, then I'm moving? I mean, you're grinding on so many different companies and things like that.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So I'd say the first thing is having a very understanding wife. So she's, I run everything through her, by her, whatever it is I'm going to do, anything new that's introduced, we always, it's mutual respect within our marriage. So, I don't do anything. We sit down and talk about it, and we say, hey, is this good for... That's awesome. For the image of the page, And so she's always been a big support, behind it. And, and she even had told me before when I first started it that, I needed to treat it, put as much into it as I'm expecting to get out of it. So treat it like it's a second job if I wanted it to amount to anything. And so basically this turned into, after 3 p.m., I take the John Deere hat off, put the Foodist hat on. That's right. And, over the last 3 years or 2 years, really, when it really started amping up to the point where, I've had to go and buy, a dry erase board to hang in my office because I'll write my weekly schedule out for companies, different restaurant owners reaching out if they have new menu items coming out and stuff like that. And it's really just a matter of, we work at our schedule through the week, depending on what we have going on family-wise. And, most of the things I go do, you only take about anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. That's the long, maybe an hour or two. And so I just schedule it as long as it fits within our family schedule and go work with different restaurant owners and work to get content to kind of showcase their food and their restaurant and stuff. Yeah, amazing. I got so many more things to dive in here, so I hope you're buckled up. So one, do you feel like you've introduced yourself to every restaurant owner here in the city? At this point, they know of you, you've tried it. What's that look like? So when I started it, so what I did was, so I'm going to take a long route with this. I started a list on my phone, a running list of every restaurant that I could find possibly within Springfield and around Springfield. And so I made a running list with it, and I started working down that list and going to those different restaurants. So in the beginning, no one knew who I was. I'd just go in, take pictures, and move along my business. But then once people started seeing me more often, it turned into more and more often that the restaurant owners were reaching out to me. So it does seem like now, granted, I haven't been to every restaurant in Springfield, but for the most part, if I go in someplace, more often than none, someone usually recognizes me when I go in, and so at one point, we bought we had T-shirts printed up, with the Foodist logo, hats and stuff like that.
Put me on that next pre-order. I'm just
so that's already a beacon, when your server sees that, or someone, a server recognizes me, or something like that, and so it's got to the point to where I have that stuff, the shirts and the hats, but I get so many hats from different restaurants. So to me, it's a cool way to support the restaurants, going either buying shirts or their gear and stuff like that. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not going to wear the Foodist stuff. I'm going to, I'll wear a hat from a different restaurant and something like that. Because then if I can go in and they don't see that logo right off the bat, I can kind of go in and do my thing without being recognized.
Right.
And make it a little bit more candid with what I'm doing with
or even some special treatment or whatever. I don't know if that happens or
somewhat. Sorry.
Special treatment. They're like, oh, he comes in here. Let's make it really special versus just another day in the life.
Yeah. So there's obviously, when restaurants reach out and they want to schedule content, they're like, hey, we've got new menu items or new stuff that we want people to see and we want people to come in to try, so I schedule those throughout the week and we go in and they, most of those, they want them to be picture worthy. So they'll, build that plate to the way they want it to be for me to either create video or pictures from, and as marketing for them. And then there's just the other times where we just go in, me and my family will go in and eat. And there are times, I'm a people person where my wife isn't necessarily as much of a people person. And so, there's times where if we go in someplace, she's like, no one recognized you. She's like, we just got to eat and we got to leave type of thing. She's
That's
like,
awesome.
We didn't have to chat for an hour, where I enjoy the chatting for an hour. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. So I have a question on the social media side. And of course, you can be, as open as you want, no big deal. I feel like you're an influencer here in Springfield. And, my friends and I, sometimes people will ask us to do different things, photo shoots, events, whatever. We love doing it. But obviously, time can be money. And so it's hard to navigate, well, okay, this is this much time. Do I want to charge for this? Do I want to do trade work? Do I want to do that? So all these different things you're doing, whether it's, Ozarks Live or radio shows or blogs or, you're taking content, are you charging for all of that? Is there some stuff that you just love to do? What does that look like?
So whenever I started it, behind it, I never really wanted to necessarily, when I say make a profit off of the business, I'm blessed enough that within my job and then being freelance for CVB, so CVB pays me to create content for them, and then being monetized through Facebook and Instagram, getting paid through them, that covers the cost for, whenever I'm going out to restaurants, that supplement income with that. And so I've never really had the necessarily need or want to have to try and charge a restaurant just because of that supplement income covers anything that I'm going to go do. So, even if a restaurant invites me out, we schedule it, I learned real quick from, there's another guy here in town who does barbecue. He's sponsored by Johnsonville. His name is Tim Shelburne. And I reached out to him when I first started asking for advice. And one of the things he told me, because he's got 50 or 60,000 followers, and he's like, just keep in mind that a lot of your mom and pop places don't have huge marketing budgets. And, so, if you come in asking for hundreds of dollars from these little mom and pop places, they don't really have that necessarily in their budget. That's pay for an employee. That's stock for food in their restaurant. And he's like, and more than likely they're going to say, hey, let us give you a burger or something like that type of thing. And I'm like, okay, that's good advice, And so seeing that supplement income through my freelance stuff and social media, being able to cover that, I was like, okay, so that covers all my costs. I'm like, I'm not, I have no plans to charge any of the restaurants unless I for some reason, absolutely have to. And luckily enough, I haven't had to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So even taking it a step further too is your passion for food. I mean, is that something that you've always had your whole life, something that has grown in your relationship, or how did that start?
Definitely. So whenever I was in high school, so my goals were, I had an interest in culinary.
One thing about me is that I don't play games unless it's ping pong at Classics Yard. Classics Yard is Springfield's #1 social sport and game center. It is located in the back of Classic Rock Coffee Company headquarters and next door to the Riff. Coffee, sports, music, what more could you want? Located at 1900 West Sunset Street in Springfield, Missouri. Be sure to check them out, play some games, and reserve your event today. Visit www.classicsyard.com.
And that's what I wanted to do outside of, going to college and stuff like that, is when I wanted to get into the culinary side of things. And so life just didn't go that way. It went more into the business side and stuff like that when I got on through Deere. And I was a very plain eater. So I give my wife credit because she was the one who really introduced food to me, like not food, but
no, I get it though. I'm like 19 years old, like, wow, why did no one? I've never had Cajun seasoning before, like, yeah. And so she was like, why are you eating a plain burger? You don't want onions, lettuce, tomato, and all that stuff on it. And so she used to really get at me for to get me to try different things. And so then once I started this page and I started kind of branching out and going to all these different restaurants and kind of getting away from, the icks of like, oh man, I don't think I ever want to try oysters or oh, they're so good,
something
though.
like that.
We're oyster lovers here.
And over the last 4 years, I've made so many friends with different business owners that bring in so many different types of food to the area, and getting to try different, their family's recipes and being open to try things. We've created the rule in my household that you can't say you don't like something if you never tried it.
That's good.
And, because you think, even, I'm guilty of it. I'm like, no, I don't want, I'm not interested in whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a texture thing or, you're afraid to try something new. So I kind of, we created that rule and being, open to it, it made it to where I've been able to try other foods and figure out which ones I like and which ones I don't. Mm-hmm. And, I've learned there's very little that I don't like, which really surprised me, because I think it's just because I've been open to trying so many different new things that I'm always wanting to test my palate, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like I'm always wanting to find something new, to really knock my socks off, something I've never tried. And so that's kind of become the goal of like, give me something that's really going to, blow my mind type of thing.
Is there anything off the rip that you're like, yeah, I'm just not a fan of this? Or,
right off the top of my head, I can't think. Well,
okay.
I do not like canned spinach.
Okay. I can agree with that one.
Thing, but, that's one thing that I really don't want to eat, type of thing. And but so far, there's not a whole lot that I can think of off the top of my head that I'm just like, no, I don't like that. You know?
Yeah, I can think of like 7, but I do want to start being more like you in the sense of, like broccoli. I used to hate broccoli, and then this past year I really had it cooked in different ways, and I'm like, wow, this is actually really good. So, okay. Yeah. Has anybody ever reached out to you about, maybe it's a different state or something that was like, hey, if you're ever in Chicago, we want you to come check out our food at our restaurant or anything, like international or in other places of the country?
No, not that I can think of. So, we do like to travel, for vacation time and stuff like that. And so we always, within my household, our vacations will revolve around trying different restaurants that become on our radar. But I don't think I've had anybody... like maybe say like Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I've had people, places in Kansas City that have reached out because my dad lived there for about 12 years, and so we used to travel up there. And so I'd like to showcase like within my stories on Instagram of places we'd try, and so I've had places reach out saying, hey, next time you're up here, come check us out, something like that. So I'd say that's probably within this region, probably the biggest one, I'd say.
That's pretty cool. Like, would you ever be open to expanding 417 Foodist to a larger audience too, or no?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's you teeter on the with having that name with the 417 on there. Some people are open to seeing some of the food. Like when I travel, I've had other people just flat out tell me like, we don't follow you for your vacation food. We follow you for
the haters
local
gonna
food.
Hate. The haters gonna hate.
And so there has been times where I'm like, man, did I? Is it time to drop the 417 on it? Type of thing. And but it's never become serious enough because when you take vacation maybe twice a year, it's not enough to completely change the way you run the, the profile. So if it was something that if I was traveling for work, it'd be, a lot different. And, so I always do like a little poll on my Insta stories of like, hey, I'm traveling to Dallas, Texas. Do you want to see some food from Dallas, Texas? And
you could always make like a sub Instagram too, or URL that's like Foodist Travels or something. I'm like Foodist for the world. Something I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I thought about that as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have a buddy who he's a local business owner here in town, and he'll go with me to different restaurants, and he just he'll photograph me taking photographs of the pictures or of the food. And just
I'm the friend that tries to do that. So.
And so he just his name is Billy as well. And so he just recently started a page literally last week called Billy Eating with Billy. And it's just pictures of him with me doing my stuff at different restaurants he gets to go to. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Okay, so this question is, I don't think you saw this one coming, but we were talking about it earlier. You're talking about how many years you've been with your wife. And one thing, usually on the podcast, we have like a girly pop segment. I'm always like, but, in terms of, telling my listeners, like how long you've been together, and then maybe too, like what are pieces of advice for a happy marriage, really? Yeah.
So like I said, we've been together. So me and my wife, it'll be 19 years this August.
Which is amazing. We got it.
And, well, I would say one thing that when we got married that we agreed upon was within our marriage was that neither one of us was higher than the other. So it was, we based everything off mutual respect. Anything that we were going to do within our marriage was going to come, it was something between the both of us that we'd come to an agreement on. Or, it wasn't just me saying, hey, I'm the man, we're doing this, or vice versa. It needed to be something that we came together, we agreed upon with it, and having that mutual respect within our marriage on anything and everything we did. And, there's a yin and yang to it. If I said, we should really do this, and she thought the opposite, we could sit down and do a pros and cons list or something like that. And I think it's just that. It's having that mutual respect with each other to make decisions together as a team. And it's worked well for us. So
very cool.
And we know that, anything major, any major life changes or points, anything that's going to happen is when we both know it's the appropriate time for, everything from buying a new house to buying a new car. If it's something we both feel like, it's that time, then one of us isn't pushing it on the other one. And so it's worked well for us.
That's awesome. Did you guys meet in high school too, or no?
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool.
So I went to Sparta. She went to Ozark.
Okay.
And, so we just met through some mutual friends.
Very cool. I was going to say, if you have any advice for men out here on how to shoot their shot, maybe it's like, hey, you had a good restaurant, that would be like a #1 date spot.
Oh, yeah. I have been out of the dating game for so long. So my advice would be from the year 2002.
Hey, look, shooting your shot doesn't age, man.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, well, quick pause from the food content. Obviously, the Super Bowl here is coming up soon.
Yeah.
My poor Packers, it is such a sensitive topic, but I really think they're going to be Super Bowl in like 2-3 years.
Yeah.
I have money on it currently.
Yeah.
But, so 49ers and Chiefs, are you a big Chiefs fan?
I wouldn't say I'm rooting for the Chiefs just because it's Kansas City.
Yeah.
But typically I don't watch any of the football games until it comes to the point where it's meaning something. So like, it's like, it's playoff time. Okay. Now I'll start watching something, if it's the Chiefs are in it. And, so like even just this season, I've watched the last 2 Chiefs games, and that's usually, Stephanie, my wife, would be like, why aren't we watching the whole season? Like, I'm busy enough that I don't think about it, and but now that something's on the line, now I want to watch, type of thing.
100%. I'll be honest. Like, I didn't even watch the Packer game until Thanksgiving. That's when they really turned things around, and then I'm like, no one talked to me on a Sunday. Like guys I used to talk to, and I remember younger, I'd be like, hey, do you want to like Super Bowl party? And they'd be like, no, I need to like be at home and be locked in and watch the game. And now I kind of get it now. I'm like, okay, no one talked to me. I get it. So 49ers and Chiefs, I guess I'm assuming, who do you think is going to have the game?
Oh, so I'm going to say Chiefs just because, but I haven't watched any of the other games, so I don't.
Okay.
So I really have no stake in it. I'm
Okay.
just, everyone in my household and my family, my sister, brother-in-law, everyone's Chiefs fans, and so I'm just like, okay, let's
You
go
got to ride the
Chiefs.
bandwagon.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
self-aware. You're self-aware about it.
Yeah.
And Taylor Swift, do you think that her and Travis Kelce are probably going to get married?
So according to my wife, who wasn't watching the game at all yesterday until they'd show Taylor Swift and then she'd run into the room, and based off of our sitting at the breakfast table conversation is that they are going for my wife is they are going to get married and they are going to have children at some point.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, okay, I'm here to say so.
I know. I will honestly, if it happens, I'll be really surprised. But my coworker today, he laid it on me and he was like, "This is what's going to happen." He thinks Travis Kelce's going to retire this next year. I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, who knows? So
yeah,
crazy.
Who knows?
Well, transitioning back into some of the food stuff. Obviously, my listeners know I don't really cook. I cook like maybe 1 or 2 meals a week if I'm lucky. I'm busy. I'll try to cook something and then it's bad and then I just get upset. Like I'm like, this is so sad. Yeah. But in terms of your 5 top places to eat in Springfield, I mean, I'd love to know because I really eat at the same 2 places and I want to expand my palate. So.
Yeah. Oh, so for my top 5.
Yeah, so your top 5.
So like I said, you're putting me on the spot here. So
yeah, that's what I do.
So I'm just going to shoot right off the top of my head. So I'm going to say number 1 is Corner 21.
Okay.
So it's an authentic Chinese restaurant here in Springfield. Number 2 is Retro Metro.
Oh, so good.
So that's one of my favorite places to go to. I treat myself there at least once a month. Number 3, I would say Farmer's Gastropub.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite places. Number 4 is a 14 Mill Market. I really like 14 Mill. So I mean, I know that's 10 different restaurants.
I have yet to go, so I need to go.
I know the majority of the restaurant owners there. So to me, it's not just about the food. It's the atmosphere, being able to go there and hang out and get to talk to all these people I know and stuff like that. So I'd say that's probably number 4. Number 5, let's go with JW's Kitchen.
Okay.
So I like breakfast food. And so a spot that I can get, brunch all day long, from 7 a.m. till 2, biscuits and gravy or a full English or something like that.
Yeah.
That's always at the top of my radar.
I'm shocked no downtown places.
See, I know. See, you're putting me on the spot here. So I love Gailey's. I love Druff's. See, now my list continues to grow.
The Order? Are you a fan of
I've
the Order?
I've never been to the Order.
Okay,
that's on my list.
You have to go to the Order. That I was like waiting for that one, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, or Flame too. I mean, but like
I haven't been to Flame yet either. I know. I have my running list of places in Springfield. So
how has this been going on for this many years and you have not hit that?
I have a buddy who asked me, he's like, "You haven't been to Flame yet?" I'm like, well, it's one of those places where I don't just like, I'm leaving my house, I'm going to Flame.
It is definitely like, anniversary type place. Yeah.
And so when it comes to like the nicer sit down reservation, probably, those on my list seem to kind of work their way in when it's the appropriate time.
Gotcha.
For an occasion or something like that. And so like I said, now if we can split this up to where it's like, here's my favorite places for downtown.
Right, I know. I'm so bad. I was just like, period. Just all of them.
Well, seriously, like if I'm downtown, like my default is I really like Druff's.
Okay.
So if you've been to Druff's, I like Druff's and Prairie Pie.
Okay.
So
I've yet to have
I'm gonna start rambling. I'm gonna say therefore pizza and downtown's definitely got a lot of great spots.
Yeah, you got to try the Order, man.
Yeah,
I mean, that food is so good. But yeah, I would say, those are good too. I'm trying to think. The BLT at Gailey's goes crazy. I don't know if you've had that. That's, in my opinion, best BLT in Springfield.
Okay,
so
right on.
I don't know why. The Euro place, you've had the Euro place though. Greek Belly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah.
Didn't make top 5, but it's okay.
The owner there. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So, in terms of, trying out different restaurants, is that something you do every single day? Or is it, I'm going to do this, Wednesdays and Fridays? Like, what does that look like? Is it more scheduled or more spontaneous in your schedule?
So it changes week to week. So the ongoing joke is, Sundays when we do our grocery shopping, my wife always asks me, okay, what days are you going to be here and what days are you not going to be here? So we try to keep it to where, unless a restaurant has reached out and they want to schedule, content or something like that through the week, that we plan to cook from home. we buy the groceries to cook from home and stuff like that. And some weeks it's a little bit more heavy on content. Like this week specifically, I've got something almost every day this week. Maybe it may not be a restaurant wise, but it's some form of content that I'm going to go do for a local business or a restaurant or something like that. And but if I don't have anything scheduled through the week, we'll just cook at the house. We like to grill or smoke or something like that. And when I say when after you go to so many restaurants, when you look at your menu of what you cook at home, it's nowhere near as like, man, this restaurant does it 10 times better than what I'm making it. And so our menu at home isn't a huge wheel of rotation. It's just like taco salad, chili, spaghetti, something like that.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so it just changes week to week. It just really just depends. And,
gotcha.
Usually by Friday night, my household's like, we're done eating at home. We want to, if it's up to my 13-year-old, it's pizza or chicken nuggets from McDonald's
like
or a
the way
burger
they
or something. So, yeah.
So what is your favorite food to eat in general?
Probably breakfast food.
Okay.
Like I could get down, give me, waffles, biscuits and gravy, omelets, anything breakfast wise.
Okay.
That's probably my go-to type of food, and then followed up by usually anything like Asian food. So that's,
okay.
I like, if you haven't been to Corner 21, it's all authentic stuff. So it's, different types of fried fish and noodle dishes and cumin lamb and stuff like that. And so those are probably my two most favorite.
That's good. I'm going to put you on the spot again. Best breakfast place. Or I guess we could say top 3 breakfast places in Springfield. There's a lot.
There's
almost,
a lot.
Almost much as like churches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can say the places I frequent the most, I would say Roots Coffee Bar.
Okay.
I go to Roots Coffee Bar quite a bit. Let's see here else. So I mentioned JW's. So we, since they've opened up, we've been there a good handful of times. And trying to think. I'm just going to have to go with Druff's, because Druff's is where I go for, if I'm downtown. I don't hardly ever go to Druff's for lunch, but I go there for breakfast.
Yeah, that's so funny, because I feel like I always go there for lunch. Yeah. I'm a lunch person, so
And I'm sure I'm probably overlooking something that I've had a million times, so.
No, that's funny. No, you're good. So in terms of social media, especially, for me, I'm in the marketing industry, obviously podcast, social media, it's a big part of what I do. And I know that it can be exhausting, like thinking of new content, thinking of blog topics, like thinking of things to stick out. Do you do a lot of research in terms of like looking at other food influencers or stuff like that to differentiate yourself or, help with topics for these, stuff like that?
So I've been lucky enough since I started working for Springfield CVB. So my editor there, Madison, we have kind of brainstorm meetings where she will send me, hey, I've got a list of different content ideas that I think would be great on the food side. And so she'll send me a list of different things, to look at, through like different apps like CapCut or something like that. So, whatever's trending through there. And it's definitely, you get out of it what you put into it. And, so there are times, where I'll spend time going through reels on Instagram and trying to see what's trending, whether it be music wise, whether it be the way they put the videos together, how they're editing things, and kind of go through and save content, make mental note, make notes on my phone or, on a, Word document of different things to try out, but in CVB has been a real big help for when it comes to content, just because of it. While I am freelance for them, they want to see me succeed with my content through their outlets as well as my own. So they've been a great resource with, they're doing it full time, 8 to 9 hours a day where, I'm not technically doing it full time. So, with that spare time they've got, like, hey, they'll send me over some different content ideas and stuff like that. So it's been really great.
That's awesome.
For sure.
And all your reels, everything on the Instagram, and that's all you. Or does your wife help at all too with that, or that's just?
Nope. So there's some if she's with me, and I'm like, hey, it'd be better. It's easy. I need a third hand.
Yeah.
For something. She'll whoever's with me, whether my wife or a buddy or someone like that.
Yeah.
And we'll maybe get shots if it's of me, where it's easier for someone else to, besides me holding a camera out trying to cut food or eat food at the same time. And but 99% of it's all just me going out with, a rig for my phone or a camera and something like that. And and awkwardly creating content in a restaurant when people are looking, trying to figure out what you're doing.
That's Bass Pro Tournament of Champions were like, hi, can we get an interview? I mean, I feel like you have to look a little awkward to get the video that looks really good.
Yeah.
And just be confident with it. And
it's one of those things of, I've learned now after 4 years of just blocking out, because I never wanted to be in the spotlight with anything. That's why I never had my picture on any of my page. And when Joy asked me who I was, because, I didn't want the spotlight to anything. And so, agreeing to go on live TV, once a month to once a week kind of, throws you into the spotlight and stuff. And so now it's just like, if I'm going into a restaurant, I need better lighting, if I'm working with a restaurant,
light, you turn it on.
And so I used to carry like a ring light with me, one that I could clip onto my phone. And, an LED light, and depending on how dark the restaurant is, it's like you're sitting in, a pizza place, and I think it's called like Masso Pizza over on Sunshine. And it's super dark in there. And then I'm like, okay, I got to get a picture of this. I clip on an LED light and it lights up the entire restaurant, draws all the attention to you as you're trying to take pictures and stuff.
That's awesome.
And phones have come a long way, even in the last 4 years, where now I'm like, I don't even have to bring a ring light with me into most restaurants just because the cameras are so well.
Yeah.
So,
do you have any like editing softwares or apps you use that are really beneficial that maybe someone would be inspired by?
So most of the stuff, if I use any of it, so I'll use CapCut for editing my videos and stuff. Lightroom, I'll use it if I need, mainly just for lightning pictures, depending on what the lighting's like in the restaurant. It's a great app for just literally singly going in and just lightening the picture, and even putting not a copyright, but like a watermark on your picture if you want to put that on there. And those are the two main ones that I use consistently.
Awesome.
And CapCut is great for
sponsorship, please.
Yeah. So CapCut's been great for my video editing and stuff like that. So I
love CapCut. Yeah. So what's the hardest part of really having the 417 Foodist and being consistent? Because one thing I talk about on the podcast a lot is moments of burnout.
Yes.
And there was one season that I was like, I'm tired of doing the podcast. I fell out of love with it, but then I got back in like a month or two later, but I still stayed consistent. And so have you ever had a moment where you're like, I want to just take a break, know?
Yeah. I mean, I think mine really just hit me probably the last 6 to 8 months. It's just because it's gotten so busy, and I understand like the content is going to be whatever I allow it to be, however much I decide to accept. And, but it's most definitely been, the last 6 months for me, because it's gotten so busy, I'm just like, man, I had that burnout. I'm like, I need a break. There's so much to do. And so at the end of 2023, so my work closes for about a week and a half at Christmas time. And I just took that time through the first of the year and just, I had a backlog of stuff. And so I just kind of scheduled some stuff throughout the week and just took my time off, didn't go do anything.
Yeah.
Just gave myself a break just because I was just tired of working, 9 to 10 hours a day and then going and doing food content for 3 to 4 hours, sometimes 4 days a week, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And it was just tiresome. I was just like, man, I need a break from it. And so, a couple of weeks of not having to run around and doing it was a nice break. For sure.
No, intentional rest is so huge, because I really feel like if we don't take the time to allow us to just rest, have Sabbath, like clear our mind, we need that time to figure out, more creative ideas and really to just relax and still be in love with our passions. And that's one thing. It's like, my passion is a lot of hard work, but I love it, and I think that's so important to have, and to, stay strong with. So
Yep, I agree.
Do you, I was going to ask you if you cook, but what's your favorite meals to make?
So I have a pellet smoker in my house.
Okay.
And so I like to bust that out and just smoke like ribs or, reverse sear steaks and stuff like that. So I like going to the different butcher shops and trying different cuts of meat and just really just grilling. That's kind of, usually my favorite thing to do, just especially if it's nice outside, going outside and shooting basketball with my son or something like that, kind of like what you see, old time America, just grabbing a chair and sitting in a chair while you got the smoker going or something.
The Springfield dream. I'm just kidding.
So
no, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's just like barbecue, good family time. Yeah.
It's something that, I don't really go out to eat for a lot, which is barbecue, just because we enjoy doing it at the house. So if I'm doing it at the house, it's not something I seek out, when I leave the house to go out to eat, type of thing.
What's the most rewarding part, really, of what you do?
Right off the top of my head it's becoming friends with all these different restaurant owners. That's really when I started it and it really started taking off. That was my own personal goal. Since I didn't get into the culinary world, this was my way of living vicariously through them without all the stress of running a restaurant.
It's like, I'll see you guys later.
And to me, the friendships that I've gained over the last 4 years, since I've got to meet so many people and, maintaining those relationships and, to where now, I can reach out to different business owners and be like, hey, you want to go, I'm always interested in what they eat. If you're working in a Mexican restaurant or Chinese restaurant, like at the end of the day, you don't want to eat your own cooking and you want to go out to eat, where do you go as a business owner?
Yeah, that's fascinating.
And so that's what's fun to me is reaching out to them like, hey, do you want to go out? Where do you want to go eat? Let's get together. And it doesn't have to be content, doesn't have to be anything, just hanging out, getting something to eat and building those relationships. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, super cool. Now your kids, are they like, man, this is so cool what Dad's doing? Like, does it inspire them in any way, or is it ever hard, balancing, parenthood and also, having the side hustle with your job?
So my son is 13. He just turned 13 in October. And so we laugh because, he has his own cell phone. So he'll take pictures of his food like what I do.
I love it.
Usually. And so most of the restaurant owners don't know him because so when I started it, we keep my son out of a lot of my stuff just because, I had some people warn me of like, if you put your children in your stuff, you get this large amount of following, people will recognize your kids even when you're not with them type of thing. So, me and my wife are like, I can be in the spotlight as much as I want to, but we have the agreements that, Channing won't necessarily be in a lot of the pictures, the videos, and stuff like that. He's with me. Him and my wife go with me to a lot of places. So he gets to meet a lot of new people, try new foods if he's willing to try new foods. And so, we were aggravating him saying that he could take over the page when he gets older since he's
love it.
Taking pictures of his food and stuff like that. And he enjoys doing that as well. So,
super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. So what's your, vision for 417 Foodist? Like, if we were just chopping it up and you're like, what's your 5-year plan? What would you say? I'd love to see this happen and this is, go this way.
Everyone always asks me like, when am I going to be able to turn it into, like, say, a full-time job doing the foodist stuff? And I always have the same, it seems like I always have like the same generic default answer of, when it can pay, all my bills and medical insurance and, all that type of stuff. And, that would obviously be an awesome goal to have to where, maybe it's not just doing the food stuff on its own, but being able to work as an affiliate with some of these outlets that I already work with, with the news station and the radio station. If it was ever become popular enough to where, I go down to visit family like in Dallas and San Antonio, and they have people who do what I do, but for their local news stations. Granted, it's a bigger, outlet down there, and but they'll do it as a small segment, 5 days a week for their local news station or something like that, doing almost exactly what I'm doing.
Wow.
And I'm like, I think that'd be cool to be able to do, up here. And is it a realistic goal? You never know,
That's all that my goals are unrealistic.
So you never know. I never thought that in 4 years I would be on TV and the radio and in print and stuff like that. So you never know what's going to happen in the next 4 years.
100%. I think it's good to have delusional goals. And I, like for myself too, I say a lot of the things I'm like, hey, I say it out loud. And I'm like, I would love for this to happen. And I almost feel like when you say it, when you hear it, it's just kind of like, you walk in that almost every day. Yeah. So you have no idea. You work hard, you stay consistent. Who knows where God will take you. So
I agree.
Very cool.
For sure.
Well, I know that we are, coming to a close here soon.
Yeah.
A quick question I have, just a few last ones before I get into how I end every show. We've talked a lot about the opportunities that you were given just with the TV and everything. Did all the opportunities come to you, or did you ever have to shoot your shot for any of the opportunities?
Actually, all the opportunities came to me.
Amazing.
So,
So good.
so like I said, most of the outlets that I wrote for, they all reached out to me. The news station reached out to me, and the radio was kind of funny. So one of the DJs, the Ginge, me and him started our accounts at the same time. And so the joke was, we started it in 2019. Ginge would always say, like, my goal is to have 1,000 followers by the end of the year, that year in 2019. And then he was like, we want you to come on the show at some point. And so mine kind of took off, and he'd always aggravate me, like, yours is taking off way faster than mine at the time. And he's like, but I want you to come on Power 965. And we talked about that every year for 4 years.
Wow.
And because we just met through my page, and we never met face to face. We'd always just talk through Instagram. And then finally at like the Macaroni and Cheese Fest in 2023, he was a judge there, and he's like, we need to finally make it happen. And finally got on there. So that's the one that was kind of more unconventional, like just us planning it for 4 years and then finally pulling the trigger to it.
Yeah.
So, but everything else, everyone's, all reached out to me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. What advice would you give to someone that wants to pursue something like what you're doing? And then what's advice that you would give to really your younger self?
So I'd say if you want to do what I'm doing, consistency is key, because, it takes that hustle of, if you want it to become something, I mean, you have to work at it. You have to do it and go at it every day. And that's what I've done for 4 years, is even the times where I did want to, if I wanted to take a break because mentally I was exhausted, at the end of the day, you still had at the back of your mind of like, I still need to do something. And, a lot of people start things, and then when you realize how much work it takes, it can be exhausting. But I mean, if you want it to become something, to stay at it. I mean, go at it every day. Give every little bit that you've got to try and make it something. And you just never know what's going to, if it's going to take off. And it may feel like a hustle, which it is, but consistency is key.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Thank you so much, Billy, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone, you guys have to go follow him for sure, and try out the different food that he mentions. Now, before we finally close the show, the last questions I usually always ask is favorite song, favorite quote, and what do you want your legacy to be?
So let's just say, a quote that I've always had in the back of my head ever since I was in high school, comes from the movie Joe Dirt, if you've ever seen Joe Dirt or not. Life's a garden.
Stop, because that's the quote I always say.
Is it? Yeah. So that's one that's always.
Yes. Yeah. This is how we knew this was a good podcast.
So that's the one that's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
As for, choosing a favorite song, that seems like it changes.
Yeah.
Right now, I think the song that, when I hear it, I always crank it up right now is Lose Control by Teddy Swims.
Okay.
I really like that one right now, and so that'll be my favorite one for, the next month or so before it gets played so much. I'm tired of it,
right.
type of thing. And, legacy wise is I just want people, to look back at what I've done and, and see that I started this just to help local businesses. It's not been anything, I never wanted anything out of it personally for myself. I want people to look back at it and say that the support that I gave to local businesses was to showcase, show a love for what they're doing. Look at the food that you're eating and know that it's not just you sitting down and ordering food and the plate comes out. That everything that it takes to get that plate at your table is a dream of somebody else's.
That's good.
And, they started this restaurant because that was their dream. And I want to show, undying support to that place, all these different local restaurants. And I would like people to see that that's what I did. With every ounce of my being through those accounts, whatever I could do was to show as much support for others as I can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Billy, you have been completely awesome. Can you tell my listeners where they can find you or tune in or all the things?
Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at 417FOODIST'S. And you can find most of my write-ups work at springfieldmo.org.
Awesome. And do you have active merch right now or some on the way in the pipeline?
I've got, so usually all the merch that we get, family skims the first bit of it. And but I'm actually going this Friday to the people who do all my shirts and hats and stuff like that, and we're going to go in and do kind of a reorder up. So we should have some
We love it.
New shirts and stuff like that, and hats and everything coming within the next few weeks.
We love it. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. And to my listeners, we have the podcast party for year 2 coming up. This is the 50th episode of Keeping Up with Cash. So made it this far, you guys.
Yeah.
To 50 more. Well, you guys, I love you guys. Stay warm and keep on keeping up with Cash. Okay.